Good morning. I'm Dr. Tom Rivera, and it's September the 18th, 2014, and it's approximately 9:30 this morning. And with us this morning, we have the Dean of the Fowle Library, Mr. Cesar Caballero. Cesar, welcome,
Thank you.
and thank you very much for being with us. And our guests today are Mr. Fernando Rodríguez. Fernando, welcome to our interview this morning.
Good morning.
It's good to have you here. And also, we're delighted to have Sammy Hernández.
Thank you.
Sammy is Fernando's cousin, and they were gracious enough to be with us this morning after I called Fernando and said, Fernando, would you do us a big favor and interview with us, because we'd like to talk about the businesses in Colton. And your grandfather was one of the few people that had a business in Colton, and he started the grocery store in the early 1900s. Could we talk about, can you tell us about your grandfather?
Sure.
When did he come, where was he from, and where did he come to Colton?
He was from Aguascalientes,
¿Y
Mexico.
¿Cómo se llama? I'm sorry. ¿Cómo se?
Víctor Rodríguez. I don't think he had a middle name.
Okay.
It's Víctor Rodríguez. He came here prior to the turn of the century, and he married my grandmother, Manuela Ramirez.
Uh-huh.
And about 3 years later, after they were married, they had enough money to buy a piece of property, and that's where they decided to build a store.
And where was he born, in Mexico?
Aguascalientes.
Aguascalientes?
Yes.
And what year, do you remember, or do you know?
Oh, no, I don't.
No?
No, I don't. He came here, he was 11 years old.
Ah, okay.
Him and his uncle.
And what year was that?
I don't know the exact year, but
He
it
was
was,
born in 1896.
1896?
No, 1886.
1886.
that's correct.
1886.
That's
okay.
correct, because I visited the tombstone. That is
Yeah.
correct, yeah.
So he came here in the late 1800s, 1890s?
Yes.
right?
1897.
1890s.
Yeah, he was 11.
Uh-huh. And then why did he come to Colton?
Actually, he and his uncle first came to Highland, California, where they settled with some family, the Ramos family. And then later on, he got a job at the Colton Portland cement plant. So he moved over closer to the job, and I guess that's when he met my grandmother.
So he moved to Colton, worked for a cement plant,
He worked there for 45 years.
and he met your mom, your grandmother.
My grandmother, yes.
And while he was working at the Portland cement plant, he got the idea of starting the grocery store?
I think that idea had been in his head. It had been a dream of his way before the Colton Portland cement plant.
Uh-huh.
I think that's one of the reasons why he migrated here in the first place.
Uh-huh.
He had those visions, and like many people do, and it became a reality because of his persistence.
Well, you said he bought a piece of property.
Yeah.
Is that where he built this store?
That's exactly where he built the store, right on the corner of 6th and O Street, adjacent to the Santa Fe Railroad tracks.
Did he start from the foundation on up and put up the walls?
He
and
built
everything?
it block by block,
See?
by hand, with the familia, because the familia was all
Right.
centrally located right there.
Uh-huh.
You know, like Sammy mentioned earlier, my great-grandmother had 10 kids, and they had their children, so there was abundant family, abundant help right there, like it was in the old days. The familia was so
Mm-hmm.
close that whenever anybody wanted to do something, the family pitched in.
Uh-huh.
So that's how the store got started. And,
His grandfather never went to school. He could build anything.
oh yeah.
Oh,
There's nothing he couldn't do. Carpentry, plumbing, electrical. He did it all. Everything.
Self-taught.
I don't know how he did it. He no schooling, but he was just one of these. Every place he ever built had a basement, and he dug it by hand.
Really? Wow. Amazing.
After the store got going, and actually this became later when the Enciso family came into the picture, and then my tia Juanita and my tío Cuco Rochin were involved in the store also. He started to build like little apartments on the property. Again, he built everything from scratch, and he started to get tenants there and on the different rental units, and eventually finished off the house where he and my grandma lived at the very back of the property. So he was he was a very sharp guy, very business minded, and he just kept helping people. People needed things, and that's That's what he did. He helped people.
Mhm.
That was his main
How
concern.
did he help them, Fernando?
Well, you know, when people were migrating to in pursuit of their dreams, the railroad tracks became the highway, if you will.
Okay.
And they would come on the railroad cars. The train would stop there before it went into the yard in San Bernardino. So they would get off the cars. My grandfather saw them, and he related to their journey. And so he would feed them. He would talk to them. He would put them to work and feed them, give them a little bit of money if they needed money. He was always helping them. And it became a fact to those people that were on that journey that there was a place. That place became La Esperanza Market.
Ah.
Yeah.
Is this where the name Esperanza comes from?
No, actually the name Esperanza, that was the very first name of the store, but as it turns out, it relates because it means hope, and that's exactly what they did for God, I would say thousands of people over the years that stopped there for a little sandwich or a glass of water or
And they're coming from different places?
different places. I say most of them, the ones I saw were, I'm going to say Latinos because all I heard was Spanish. I was a little kid, but all the conversations were in Spanish, so I'm just saying they were Mexicans just like us, in search of their dreams as well.
Yeah.
When it-
Fernando, I'm sorry, go ahead,
When his
Sam.
grandfather married his grandmother, he was already a settled man. He had built his own house, had a job. In other words, he wasn't 20 years old.
Right.
He was already focused on what he wanted. He was 26 years old. He was 11 years older than my grandmother. I mean, his grandmother. But he was settled. He had a job. He had a house. What else could you do?
Yeah.
He had a job.
Yeah.
Very
You
good.
mentioned, Sammy, that he had a job. Now, who ran the store, Fernando?
Well, during the day, my grandmother would run the store and take care of the kids simultaneously. And then when my grandfather came home from work, he would run the store in the evening, and my grandmother would go in the back. She'd make dinner for the kids and do the things that the families do. And then when the kids got older, it got a little bit tougher for my grandmother to take care of the kids, because now the kids aren't, they're all over the place. And it was harder to run the store. And at the same time, the depression was showing its face. And it made it difficult for them to run the business. My grandfather didn't want to leave the security of the cement plant because that was a job. He had
regular
a
pay?
job, regular paycheck. So they had a decision to make, and that's where the Enciso family comes in.
Mm-hmm.
They made a deal, and they ran the store. I think they leased the store to them for a couple of years, and they until they left there. I forget what year it was. And they stayed for a couple of years, and after that, my tia Juanita came in, and my tío Rochin, Refugio Rochin, and they ran the store, I think, until 1938. And 1938, they left to go to Oceanside, California, to open their own market. And at that time, that's where Esteban and Mariana come into the picture. And-
Going back to your grandpa and his family, how many kids did he have?
Okay, first of all, there was Juanita. She was nicknamed La Reina because she was the queen, not only at the house there, but also many of the fiestas they had in the barrio. She was an entertainer in the community, so everyone knew her, and everyone knew her as La Reina. After La Reina was, let me go back a little bit. She had 5 kids, okay, and then there was Manuel, Mateo Meño. He later on, when he grew older, he would make deliveries also, go to LA, pick up merchandise, not only for my grandfather and Rochin and Juanita, but also for my tío Steve. He started a business in the produce, and eventually, when he got older, he came back to Colton, settled. He opened up R&O Mexican Food Products right there on La Cadena, right close to the original property. After him was, and he had 8 children. After him was my dad, Victor, Victor married my mom, Carmen. There was 4 of us. Then there was Antonio. Antonio died at a very young age. He was 8 years old. And the last one was Antonieta.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Is RNO still functional?
No, my uncle passed away. When he passed away, the sort of the R&O
Yeah. Okay.
business.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you mentioned Juanita. Her son wrote a wonderful story about her.
That's beautiful.
Beautiful story that he wrote about
Ismael?
her. Yeah, and then you mentioned that she was known as La Princesa. And she could sing and dance and entertain people at the Fiestas Patrias. And she took music lessons from Mrs. Margarita Gomez.
Yes, she
Mhm.
did.
She took lessons from Mrs. Margarita
Yeah.
Gomez. And we have one of her family members, one of her grandsons here, Henry Vasquez. And I think Margarita was one of the people that was a cornerstone for many of the people that took music in Colton.
Yes, she was.
Yeah.
She gave lessons in her house.
Uh-huh.
She must have given so many lessons because the teclas were all worn out, the ivory was worn off.
Yeah, and then she also did a lot of work for the Catholic Church.
And then the older boy played, what was his name, Tony? He played trumpet.
Tony,
Oh, really?
Tony played trumpet,
Oh.
yeah.
Played trumpet.
They were all
Musical
musicians.
family.
The family was
Yeah.
all, they were all
Very, very
musicians.
musically inclined.
Yeah.
You know, after my Tio Rochin and Juanita opened the market, they also opened a restaurant. It was called the Acapulco Restaurant. It was right on Pacific Coast Highway in Oceanside.
Yeah.
And that became a very popular place. She would play the piano during the dinner set and sing and just entertain the
Well,
people
getting
during
back
dinner.
to the early years when she was maybe 15 or 16, she went to Redlands, and there was this young man, Refugio Rochin,
Yeah.
that saw her, and lo and behold, se enamoraron.
Oh, yeah.
And then they couldn't stay away from each other, so she eloped. How did she tell? Sammy, go ahead and continue your story about Juanita.
My mother told me that she matured very young. When she was 12, 13 years old, she was already a grown woman. The other girls stayed like little girls, but she was very light complected and very beautiful. And being the first grandson, her father doted on her. Very dressed very nice. He had a job. And when they eloped, they wound up in where did they go? Mexicali or something.
Mexicali.
Yeah.
But tell us how she eloped that night.
Yeah.
Fernando, you mentioned that she pretended.
I don't know the story of when she eloped. I just know that they were in was it Brawley?
Brawley.
They had a store in Brawley that my Tio Refugio Rochin started, and that's where they stayed. They didn't dare come home because my grandfather was not not too happy at all with Refugio's moves. So eventually he talked Refugio and Rochin. This is when the transition took place from the Enciso family to the Rochin family at the market. But he talked them into coming home that everything was taken care of, everything would be fine and dandy, don't
He
worry
lied.
about a thing. Yeah, he lied, because when he came home, he had him arrested. So, Refugio Rochin spent a little time in jail, and then my grandmother got the better edge of that argument there, so he came home to roost.
Yeah.
And everything was forgiven.
Yeah, that was, and we have a copy of that story with our collection of things that we're doing for this project.
Yeah.
But that was a wonderful little story. It was a great
Yeah.
story.
It
I
was.
was going to ask you, también, in running the store, did he give credit to his customers?
That's all it was, a credit store.
Tell us about that, Sammy.
Well, everybody bought for the day. Nobody had an icebox. They bought whatever they're gonna eat that day, they bought it that day because no refrigeration. So my dad started people he knew. And the people in those days, when they got married, they had family, they didn't move away. They moved down the street or across the alley. Nobody could go anywhere. And we had people trading at that store, family from family. What were they gonna do? No, they couldn't go anywhere. Nobody had a car. So you're pretty locked into the neighborhood.
Mhm.
You walked everywhere. There was no bus. There was no bus service in our part of town. The only bus service was on the other side of town. So when you went somewhere, you walked. So everything was in walking distance. You walked to the cement plant. You walked to the PFE. And if you worked at Santa Fe, you walked downtown, got the trolley, and went to work. There was no transportation.
Mhm.
Bicycle or walk.
Or if you picked oranges,
Yeah.
they would
You
pick you
know,
up at the corner.
People think that picking oranges is a menial job. But it's like any other thing. There was a gentleman in our hometown called Teofilo Hernández. And he was probably the best orange picker. And he picked with two. See, oranges are not pulled off the tree. They have to be cut. They have to be trimmed because otherwise the stem, you pull the stem out, it'll rot from there. And you've got too much stem, it'll pick the next orange. He was a guy that they call him a cienero. He could, before the day was over, he already had 100 boxes, but the rest of the guys had 20. He was that good.
What was his name?
Teofilo.
Teofilo
He was related to his
Hernández.
grandfather.
Hernandez.
He was related, he was a distant relation to his grandfather.
Okay.
They came at the same time, but he was great with it, You know, the average guy goes on a ladder, he holds on with one hand. Not him. He had terrific balance and everything. And the ladder you use for picking oranges are not that heavy because you hurt the tree, but he could. Le decían el cienero.
El Cienero.
Yeah.
And Sammy, your mom and dad took over the store. When did they take over the store?
In 1938.
1938?
My mother and father both worked for the Naciano Martinez that had a bakery. They both
Okay.
worked for him. My mother worked for them, and the girls used to take care of me. We lived on the same street. So when my dad opened his store, my dad and my mother ran it, and I used to go stay with my grandmother across the street.
Now, across the street is what street, Sammy?
O Street.
O Street,
O
okay.
Street. Right there, I'd stay with my grandmother. And then when they get late at night, they didn't close the store till after dark. I wouldn't go home. I'd stay with my grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
in-
the Martinez market was also family run. Lupe Martinez was, that was my tia. And she was one of Bernardina's daughters, was my grandma's sister. So she married Don Luciano, and they opened a store of their own, and everybody worked for
yeah,
Don
one of her
Luciano at
sons
one
was
time or
Nick
another.
Martinez, a musician.
Oh, the
in town.
musician, okay.
That was a son, Nick.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Nick. Albert was a musician also, but he didn't pursue it like Nick did.
Mhm.
Nick went into songwriting and he'd do arrangements. There's not a club in the valley that he didn't play.
And he
at.
played during the 30s and 40s?
When he was in
Yeah.
high school, they already had a band when they were in high school.
Mhm.
Nick and Albert were born in the same calendar year. They weren't twins, but they were born in 1920, both of them. So they grew up together.
And the Martinez Bakery was on the corner of 7th and
And
M
7th
Street.
and M Street,
And
correct.
M Street,
Mhm.
the northwest corner.
Yeah.
Okay. And you were all related?
Yeah, we're all related. So it's pretty common for us to get out of church on Sunday with Padre Valencia and then go get some pan dulce at the bakery. And then we'd go to my Tio Steve or to La Esperanza Market. On Sundays, it was more of a social event there. Very little shopping was done. There was more yakking and, La Tijera, I guess you could say. And everybody talking about one another. And everybody knew each other in the store, which made it unique. And I think that's what made the store special. You mentioned credit, or you asked a question about credit. My Tio Steve, I think, started that. And he understood how difficult it was for young families to put food on the table, pay the bills, and just do the basic necessities of life. And so he extended credit, I think, to everybody that came into the store. I don't remember ever hearing any discussion about issues about somebody not paying or having to go knock on somebody's door to collect the debt. I think people just respected the fact that my Tio Steve and my Aunt Mariana were able to do that for them, and really it was a blessing to the whole neighborhood that was made available to them.
Now, Mariana is your mom, and she
It's my
was
tia.
your tia.
She was his grandmother's sister.
Yeah. Okay.
My grandmother was the oldest, and my Mariana was the youngest girl. She would be the ninth in line, there was 10 kids, and my Tio Pete was the youngest one.
Oh, okay, okay. And Sammy, running the store, we talked about credit. What about, what made the store, you know, a popular store where people would go there?
My
on a-
dad,
Yeah.
Tell me about your dad.
my father, he
Yeah.
just,
Steve,
I
Esteban.
never heard say anything bad about anybody. He's just a people person. Like I say, he never went to school. He could figure out mathematical problems. I don't know how he did it. He'd make numbers here, make a number in the corner. And I said, how'd you do it? I don't know, but that's the answer. He just could. He
Mhm.
could. And then, business-wise, he was very smart business-wise. He could figure out things in his head. My uncle that owned the bakery, Don Asiano, remember in the old days you had the adding machine when you went
Right, right.
he could add up a column of numbers before you could punch them in.
Mm,
And he never went to school,
mm,
but he was that good.
mhm.
You know, the old one, no.
Well, your father, Esteban, made the best sangre.
Yeah, well,
Oh,
longaniza,
delicious.
what he called it.
What do you call it?
Longaniza.
Longaniza.
Yeah.
It was the best sangre.
Yes.
It was great. I used to go there to get my pound of sangria or sangre. But what other products made him famous for that he's provided for customers?
Well, it's all what you put in it, and he never would tell anybody what he put in it. That was his, you know. He ordered the chili from some guy, he came from New Mexico. Couldn't get it here. He tried all kinds until he found something he liked. And he used garlic, but he wouldn't buy garlic. I mean, he'd buy garlic, but he had one of the hired help peel the garlic. She hated to do it, because she, but it had to be fresh garlic. He didn't use the powder, and just the way he made it.
What about the other product, the meat products? The
Well,
bologna también.
The bologna, well, in those days, I remember going to the packing house. There was a packing house on close where the Orange Show is, Smith's Packing House, and we'd go there. I was little. We'd go there and we'd go in the packing house and we'd look at them. See, when cattle is slaughtered, they put jackets on them. It's a canvas jacket they put on them, put them in the cooler, and that's why they all look alike. But what they're going to be sold, they bring them out and the grader comes in and grades them. So they're all hanging there, hundreds of them.